Imagine yourself standing on a barren limestone hill. There's nothing special about it. No flowing river, no fertile land, not even a strategic advantage. Just pale rocks and wind passing through without purpose. If you were a leader in the ancient world looking for a place to build a city, this would be the last place you'd choose. And yet, this exact spot became the center of the world for billions of people. A city that was destroyed, burned, and invaded countless times, yet never disappeared. Every time it fell, it came back stronger and more significant. The real question isn't how a city survives for 5,000 years. The real question is, what makes people hold on to a place like this, even if it costs them everything? What secret turned this hill into the most important piece of land in history? The answer begins with something incredibly simple, something rising from beneath the ground.
In the ancient world, cities followed clear rules. They were built near rivers, along trade routes, or in easily defensible locations. But this hill broke every rule. No river, no harbor, no obvious advantage. The only thing it had was a small spring emerging from a crack in the limestone, a strange spring that didn't flow constantly but burst to life unpredictably. To the people of that time, this wasn't just water, it felt like a miracle. The earth itself seemed alive, breathing. Water appeared out of nowhere. Over time, people began settling around this spring, not because the location was ideal, but because it was the only reliable source of life in a dry landscape. Slowly, that small settlement grew into a fortified city entirely dependent on that single water source. Whoever controlled the water controlled life. But even then, the city was still ordinary, until one decision changed everything forever.
At a critical moment in history, a king named David made an unexpected choice. Instead of selecting a powerful or wealthy city, he chose this unusual place as his capital. That decision alone was surprising, but what followed changed everything. David brought the Ark of the Covenant, the sacred symbol believed to represent the presence of God, into the city. Suddenly, this wasn't just a political capital anymore. It became a spiritual center. For the first time, political power and divine presence were fused into one location. The city was no longer just where a king ruled, it was where people believed God lived. Then his son Solomon took it even further, building the first temple on a specific rock that would become the most significant stone in history. From that moment on, the city was no longer ordinary. Any attack on it was no longer just a war. It became a challenge to belief itself.
Beneath the temple stood a single piece of exposed bedrock. At first glance, it was just a stone, but over time, it became something far greater. People began to believe this rock was the foundation of the world itself, the exact point where creation began. That idea alone was powerful, but what truly cemented it was the writing. Sacred texts, prayers, and songs began to revolve around the city. Generation after generation grew up hearing that this place was the center of everything. The city stopped being just a physical location. It became an idea embedded in human consciousness. And once an idea reaches that level, destroying it becomes almost impossible. But there was a problem. When multiple groups believe the same place is the center of the universe, conflict becomes inevitable. And soon, that belief would be tested in the most brutal way possible. When the Babylonian army arrived, the people believed their city could never fall. They were convinced divine protection would save them. But the siege dragged on, hunger spread, and fear replaced faith. Eventually, the walls were breached and the city collapsed. The temple was burned, sacred objects vanished, and even the Ark of the Covenant disappeared forever. The people were chained and marched into exile. This wasn't just a military defeat, it was the collapse of an entire worldview. How could a holy city be destroyed? How could God allow it? But instead of ending the story, something unexpected happened. In exile, the people began rebuilding, not with stone, but with words. And that transformation would become more powerful than any army. Far from their homeland, without a temple or a king, the people began writing, preserving, and redefining their identity. Their faith adapted, becoming something that could survive anywhere. Yet the city remained at the center of everything. Years later, an opportunity came. They were allowed to return. And when they did, they rebuilt the temple on the exact same rock. It was as if the destruction had never happened. Each time the city fell and rose again, its meaning deepened. Empires came and went, Greeks, then Romans, and each left its mark. Under Roman rule, the city reached new heights of physical grandeur, but beneath the surface, tension was building, and it was heading toward a catastrophe greater than anything before. This time, the destruction was absolute. The Roman siege brought unimaginable suffering. Hunger pushed people beyond their limits. When the walls finally fell, the temple was destroyed once again. The scale of devastation was so immense that even witnesses struggled to describe it. But once again, the story didn't end. Instead, it evolved. Faith transformed. Rituals changed. The city was no longer just a place, it became a dream, a memory repeated in prayers across generations. And the more people were denied access to it, the more powerful that longing became. At this point, the city entered a new phase, one where multiple civilizations would claim it as their own center of the universe. Over time, Christianity emerged and tied the city to the life and death of a figure sacred to millions. Centuries later, Islam added another layer of meaning. Now the same land was holy to 3 different religions, each with its own claim. Surprisingly, there were moments of coexistence. Rulers protected holy sites and allowed different communities to live side by side. But the tension never truly disappeared, because the reality was clear. A place this important could never fully belong to everyone at the same time. As the Middle Ages unfolded, that tension exploded into violent conflict. Wars, massacres, and the Crusades turned the city into a battlefield soaked in blood, where religion justified unimaginable violence. Later rulers reshaped it once again, and for a time it experienced relative calm. But beneath that calm, the tension remained. Then the modern era arrived, and everything changed. This time, it wasn't empires fighting, it was peoples, nations, identities. The land was divided, contested, reclaimed, and lost again. Every side believed their claim was absolute. The city was split, reunited, and divided again. And with every conflict, its importance only grew stronger. It was as if each struggle added another layer to its meaning. Today, after thousands of years, the conflict remains unresolved, and the same question still lingers. Beneath the streets of the modern city lies an entirely different world. Layers upon layers of civilizations, each one convinced it was the final chapter, and each one eventually gone. Archaeologists have dug deep below the surface, uncovering entire sections of buried cities. Roman walls,
Byzantine floors, ancient tunnels carved into stone, every layer tells a story of ruin and rebirth. The unsettling reality is that when you walk through the city today, you're literally walking on top of thousands of years of buried conflict, ambition, and memory. It's as if history didn't just happen, it's still there, right beneath your feet. And that raises a deeper question. If every civilization eventually disappeared, why did the city itself survive?
What's truly strange is that every empire that conquered the city believed it had finally solved the puzzle. From the Babylonians to the Romans, from the Crusaders to the Ottomans, each one was certain they held the final claim. But the outcome was always the same. They lost it. It's almost as if there's an unwritten rule governing this place, that no one can ever fully possess it. Every force that tried to impose total sovereignty eventually faced resistance, rebellion, or collapse. This raises a deeper question, not just about history, but about human nature. Is the problem the city itself, or the people who refuse to accept that it might not belong to anyone at all?
Over time, the city stopped being just a physical location and became something far more powerful. A symbol of faith, identity, justice, and even pain. There are people who have never set foot there, yet feel deeply connected to it, as if their entire history is tied to that one place. That's because the city transformed into an idea embedded in collective consciousness, the belief that there is a sacred place that must be protected, reclaimed, or preserved at any cost. This is what makes the conflict so intense. It's no longer just about land, it's about meaning. And when a place becomes a symbol, can it ever truly be shared?
Despite centuries of violence, there were rare moments when the city experienced something close to coexistence. Short periods when people of different faiths lived side by side, visiting their sacred places without fear. These moments raise an important question. Was the conflict truly inevitable? Because even brief peace suggests that the issue may not lie in the city itself, but in the geopolitical forces surrounding it. And yet, every time peace appeared, it didn't last. The pattern always returned: conflict, destruction, rebuilding. It's a cycle that seems almost impossible to break.
After 5,000 years of war, destruction, and return, the story is still unfolding. There is no clear ending, no final resolution. The world has changed, technology has advanced, but the same conflict remains. Each generation believes it might be the one to solve it, or the one to lose it forever. The city has proven one thing above all else: it outlasts every empire. And in the end, the real question isn't who will control it, but whether humanity will ever learn to approach it differently, or if the cycle will simply continue, repeating itself, just as it has for thousands of years. After everything that has happened, the question is no longer who owns the city. The question is why everyone is so certain that they must. The answer may lie in 4 simple elements: the water that gave it life, the stone that gave it meaning, the texts that preserved its story, and the hope that keeps bringing people back. This city is not just a place on a map, it is an idea that has outlived every empire. Every conqueror believed they were the final chapter, but there has never been a final chapter. The city changes, but it never disappears. Perhaps the true mystery isn't the city itself, but the human need to believe that some places matter more than anything else. Something worth fighting for, or maybe something worth understanding.